Hey everybody, I'm Jason Mefford and I'm back with Brad Miller. And today we're going to talk about something that from the title you might think, how does that really apply to the topic of this podcast? But trust me, it's going to, and it's kind of around the time to leave, right? And as Brad and I were talking before we hit record, both of us have had some experiences in the last couple of weeks uh, to where you go somewhere, you do something, and all of a sudden it's like you get this little tap on your shoulder, and it's like, okay, it's time to leave. so, so Brad, why don't you start with kind of talking about the experience that you had this last weekend? Because I think you had like three different examples of this, kind of with the same sort of thing going on, and then we can kind of jump in deeper. I can share mine a little bit
Yeah.
too, because I think it's an important lesson that when we hang out longer than we should, right, there's probably some negative effects that happen to us. And so when you feel that tapping on your shoulder, like it's time to go, it's time to go.
Yeah. Yeah. No. And if people like looked at the titles of all of our sessions, they have none of them probably make sense to really, our topic or our podcast title. So don't let that keep you guys
don't
from
let
listening.
that don't let that fool you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we'll sneak some stuff in there that's relevant for you, I'm sure. Um, so, but anyway, so yeah, actually there was like a couple of them for this past weekend. So the first was that it was my wife's high school reunion this past weekend. And for her sake and ultimately for mine, I'm not going to disclose how many years it was that she had that from. But
Well,
so
it
but it
wasn't
was
five, I know
it,
that,
it
and it
was a
doesn't
little more than
matter.
five, but
Yeah, a little more
that's
than
all I
five.
can say. It could have
Yeah.
been six, but that's a little far to go. So the plan had been, so there's two events. There was a high school football game on Friday, with the idea of people would get together and kind of tailgate and chat or whatever like that before then going to the game and sitting together and watching the game together. And then Saturday, then there was going to be another get together for people. I think it was like a local bar or something. People kind of get together again and talk more. And this way, there's people who couldn't make it maybe one night, they could do the other one. If they didn't like football, for instance, they could go, the more the social one, kind of different options for people. Try to allow as many people to be there as possible. So we went to Friday. We went to the little tailgate thing they had, and there were only a handful of people that ended up showing up. I think maybe, I don't know, 8 or 9 people ended up showing up, including us. And people just kind of sitting around and they were talking, and I'm one of the oddballs out, not being an actual classmate, one of the kind of the spouses. And so I'm just kind of sitting there and listening, and they're talking about, back when they were in high school they did this and that, and talking about who was the person that was smoking pot all the time, and didn't study, and get good grades, and how I turned out the way I did after, based on all that, and how I was in high school, and it's all this stuff about what life was like for them in high school and things like that. And the longer I'm standing there listening to all this, the more I'm just like, dude, like, let's just move on. Like, it just was just like, it was too much. Like, all this kind of this reminiscing that they were doing was just kind of bringing them down. A lot of it was kind of the negative things, how bad they were at school, the kids who were smoking up all the time or doing drugs, and what happened to them, and kind of gossipy stuff, and about this to that person. Oh, do you remember this classmate of ours? And I'm like, I don't. First of all, I don't care about any of it. Like, this is not people that I know anything about, but like, just the energy that it was putting out was just really off-putting to me. Like, it was just kind of like gossipy and kind of looking back into the past stuff, and everything. I was like, yeah, it was not good. Like, I was like, all right, let's go to this game. It's time. Like, they're gonna be starting here soon. I'm getting hungry, like trying to move things on, but obviously I can't say that to my wife. This is kind of her deal. So I just kind of sat there, but like the whole time I was nervous, like, all right, let's go. And so we did. Finally, everybody moves over to the game, and we sit there, and immediately sitting there, I'm like, this is just weird. Like, I normally love high school football games. Like, we went to a football game here locally, to the school my daughter goes to a couple weeks ago when she did some cheerleading stuff there, and it was a great time. Stayed the whole time, had fun. Like, it was a great atmosphere. But for whatever reason, at this game we were at last weekend, it just felt off. Like, I told my wife, it almost felt like they were trying too hard, whatever that means. Like, that's what came to mind. The words that came to mind was, they're just trying too hard, and it doesn't feel kind of real. I don't know. It was really bizarre and weird. But the whole time I'm sitting there with my arms crossed, just because it just feels uncomfortable. I can't put my finger exactly what it is, but it just is kind of odd and whatever. And the whole time I'm like, I'm kind of ready to go. Like, I want to hear the band because I love bands, but like, let's go. And so we actually left early, which, if you ask my wife, is unheard of because I never leave sporting events early. Like, I always like to stay to the end. But we actually pieced out, sometime before the game was over. Um, and just the whole time it was like, this is just weird. And the way home, I just kind of had that lingering after feel that, like, this just was just a really weird feeling. And I need to get home, and almost like I feel like I take a shower and get rid of all this stuff. And thankfully, on the next day when I told my wife about kind of a little bit, and she was like, all right, are you ready to go to this other event? And I was like, I can't. I can't do it. If you want to go, that's fine. Like, don't let me ruin this for you if you want to go, but I can't. And thankfully she was like, okay. He's like, ruin the party, spoil sport, but, like, kind of jokingly, but she's like, all right, you know what? That's fine if you don't want to go.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and I mean, I'm sitting here again, for those of you watch on video, I'm sitting here smiling as Brad's talking because I'm like, uh-huh, uh-huh, oh, uh-huh, right? Okay, so because I think, and again, you're just listening to that story and, oh, that's a nice story, Brad. But let's actually talk about what was going on there, right? And why he was probably feeling that way, why he was getting the nudges to go, to leave, and why he kind of got the nudge not to go to the Saturday event, right? And actually have a discussion with his wife about it, right? So they could come to a mutual agreement instead of, again, you putting yourself in that situation, right?
mhm.
And so I think, what's interesting is, like you said, and this happens all the time when you meet up with people you haven't seen for a while from college or high school. What do they want to talk about? They want to talk about the past.
Mhm.
Well, as a spiritual being, it don't matter, right? You want to be in the present, and you want to be creating for the future. You don't need to be in the past, right? And so, first off, even kind of like from a time horizon, we don't want to spend our time there, right? And then I thought what you said was interesting is, what did they want to talk about, though? They wanted to talk about negative or low vibration things,
Gossipy stuff. Yep, exactly.
gossiping, other stuff like that. So, again, Brad was recognizing it, but if we put a little consciousness to it, right? Your vibration was getting sucked down, and you could
Mhm.
feel it, right? And so your light being and even your body was kind of like, this is uncomfortable. This isn't what we're used to. I don't really like being here. Let's get out of here, right?
Right.
And so you start kind of getting these impressions or intuitive hits, or whatever word you want to call it,
Mhm.
where, again, just think about it figuratively. It's like spirit is sitting there tapping you on your shoulder saying, Brad, this isn't the best place for you to be. Brad, you probably should leave. Brad, hello, Brad,
We don't like this.
hello.
Exactly.
We don't like
Hmm.
this. Let's go, right? And so you start recognizing that. And the more that you're aware of it, right?
Hmm.
But it also brings up some of the social norms, okay, that I
Hmm.
think is important for us to think about. I mean, these are some of the lessons that I've been having the last few weeks too, as far as setting boundaries,
Hmm.
as far as doing what's right for us. be damned what the social thing might be, right? So part of you, it's like, oh man, we can't leave the tailgate early. That's kind of rude,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we think of it that way from a 3D perspective when we think, well, I don't want to be a rude person, so I don't want to just like leave, right? Because we're taught, no, you stick it out, right?
Right. I was doing it for my wife. Like it
You
was
were
her
doing it for your
reunion. This is
wife.
her deal. Like if
Yeah,
she's having a good time.
you're there to support her, right?
Yep.
But let's analogize it, right? And it's like, I know you love your wife, right? And I know you do anything for her, probably because of your love for her. But if you were standing in hydrochloric acid and it's burning your skin and it's starting to melt your skin away, right? Wouldn't you want to get the hell out of there? Right? Now, physically, I mean, again, if you're like, honey, there's this hydrochloric acid and I got to get out of here, she's not going to be like, no, Brad, you need to stand there. And until you have,
Just deal. You'll be fine.
just deal with it. You're going to be fine. And you know what? Even if all your skin and muscle goes away and you just
It's
have bones, at the bottom, hey,
whatever.
it's
Right. Yeah.
it's okay, right?
Mhm.
She would not say that to you. And from a spiritual, emotional standpoint, that's what you were in. It was like you were standing in hydrochloric acid and it hurts. And your body's like, I don't like this. I need to get out of here. And it's okay to listen to it and move on because it seems like a crazy, 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 crazy analogy. But when we put ourselves in those kind of situations, spiritually, it's like you're standing in hydrochloric acid. It's so much more damaging than we can ever fully comprehend. And then you move to the football game, it's the same thing, right? It's like I'm the same way. When I buy a ticket, when I go to a game, I go to the end, right? I
Mhm.
keep watching to the end, even if my team is like there's no chance of us winning, I just don't leave early. That's just
Mhm.
not what I've been. But sometimes, again, you were getting some of those feelings again at the football game. Why? I don't know exactly. It doesn't really matter, right? But
Mhm.
again, your light being, your body is kind of feeling like, hey, you're standing in hydrochloric acid again, and you got to get out of there.
Mhm.
Now, what I thought was interesting, as you said too, as you were driving home, you had this sense like, man, I just need to take a shower. Taking a shower in the evening to wash off the negative energies from the day is actually a wonderful spiritual practice because as we physically clean ourselves and with the intention, we're cleaning off, right, what we've
Mhm.
come in contact with during the day. It's no different than like when one of my jobs, we had cattle feedlots. And if you've ever been in a cattle feedlot, again, so imagine 200,000 head of cattle pooping and peeing in the same small geographic area, right?
Mhm.
And your pores just suck it up, right? And so again, I mean, I had to go. It was work I had to do. But when I would get home, right, my wife at that time would meet me at the garage door and say, strip down all your clothes. They're
But not in a
going
good
that,
way.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah.
it was like,
Well, not in the really good way, but it was
mm,
like, you stink like shit. And I did stink like shit, right?
mhm.
Because I'd been exposed out there. So I had to strip off my clothes before I even went in the house, throw them in the washing machine, go straight in and take a shower before I interacted again with my family. That is exactly right what we go through a lot of times from a spiritual perspective. That's why a lot of people first thing when they get home, they wash their hands, they smudge, they do some different things to kind of spiritually cleanse themselves, get rid of what they picked up while they were out in the real world, right? And so, to me, it's like, it seems like a simple little story, but my goodness, again, it's like all of those little lessons and learnings that we can kind of get just from that simple little story. And spiritually speaking, it's almost exactly like the analogies I just shared with y'all.
Get out of the cow poop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because as we go out and as we interact with people, they're not doing it. They're not, it's not like they're sitting over in the corner like a monkey, picking up their poop and throwing it at you, intentionally.
Right.
But whether they realize it or not, that's what they're doing unintentionally, right? They're throwing negative energies at you in anger, in their passive aggressiveness, and their hate, right? That they don't even realize that they have. I mean, some of my friends that I know who are very sensitive in feeling energy from other people, when I talk to them, it's like when they go to the grocery store, it's like intense
Mm-hmm.
because they can feel this hatred from other people who look at them. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, again, maybe that person's consciously doing it, maybe they're not. It doesn't matter. But they can feel that. And so, yeah, when you go out even to something like the grocery store, you got to shake your feathers, shake like a dog, get it off before, because you don't want to bring
Mm-hmm.
that back with you to your sacred space of your home or to other people that you love. You want to get rid of it before you get back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just kept on thinking, like, getting like I want to get home because I know I'm gonna feel better when I get home. I'm gonna feel safe, I guess, for lack of a better word, when I get home. And so it was a very quiet car ride and stuff until we got there, just because I was just kind of feeling kind of icky.
Yeah, no, and I think too, your experience for the Saturday night, if for everybody listening, if you feel like you can't go somewhere or you shouldn't do something, just have the conversation with people. Because again, it might break a social norm, but that's okay. A lot of the social norms are meant to hold you back spiritually, right? And having the
Mm-hmm.
conversation, like you said, I'm not telling you not to go, right? If you want to go, I want you to go. I want to support you, that way. I just can't physically be there. And
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to say that, right? But I had, a couple of examples very similar to this, right? To where, I was with a friend, and actually both of these things were kind of music venues, right? Is that there was like an open mic night at this one little area here, and it's like, we ought to go to that. And we were gonna go. I think it opened at like 6. We were gonna go right when it opened, but things kind of, we didn't make it there. And we knew it went from 6 to 8, and all of a sudden it's like 7:30, and we're like, no, we need to go. Let's go. We'll get at least some of it. So we go in. The energy was kind of, it was a nice feel. We had, we were able to sit in the back, right? So again, if you're sensitive to energy, right, even sitting like on the perimeter of a room helps protect you a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So we were sitting in the back, and again, there was a reason why we were there. We enjoyed the music. There was actually a song that we got introduced to, that somebody was playing, and we could feel emotionally like there's something about that song, right? And so we went back and found it and listened to it, and it's like, that was one of the big reasons that we went, was so that that particular song would come into our awareness, right? But we're sitting there, we're enjoying our time, and all of a sudden, we both kind of look at each other, and it's like, okay, we're done. It's time to leave. It wasn't over, right? But we waited until the next artist switched or whatever, so they were setting up, and it's like, very quietly, we just get up and we leave, right? Because we felt like it was time to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So we did. Um, Another, example, again, it was another music event, but it was kind of like a private concert in somebody's home, so there were very few people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, felt like we needed to go. The friend that I was with knew somebody who was friends with people of in this band, right?
Mm.
And so they're like, hey, here's this event, go to it, give everybody a hug for me, say hi, kind of a thing, right? So my friend had kind of committed to her friend to do that, and so but it's like, hey, would you come with me? I don't really want to go by myself. Yeah, I would love to come and
Sure.
support. I love those kind of events. Let's go do it, right? So we get there, and we come in, everything seems kind of fine to begin with. There's only like, the band is kind of still practicing a little bit, maybe two other people and us. So it was very, very small group, right? To begin with. Okay, they practiced a little bit, she goes up and kind of gives everybody the hug and says, hey, hi from my friend, blah, 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 kind of thing, right? And then we just kind of, sit down and the music starts playing, right? And at first, again, it was a nice kind of easy feel. And then all of a sudden things changed. And we could start to sense things that were going on. And we both kind of looked at each other and it's like, right? But it wasn't a right away thing, but it was like, okay, some things are happening. We need to protect ourselves. And so we did what we need to protect ourselves in that space, right? And then again, we looked at each other and it's like, now it's time to go, right? Because as other people were coming in, other energies were getting mixed in that space. And some of those people's energy was not good. And it was actually directed at us for a particular reason, thus the protection, right? And we stayed to accomplish what we needed to accomplish. And then time to go, right? Waited until the end of that song, quietly got up, removed ourselves. So, again, I mean, and things may change, right? Again, everybody listening, when you go someplace, it's like, yep, I need to go here, go get what you need to get, but once you've gotten what you need to get, it's usually time to go. And you'll know when that is if you're kind of tapping in and listening for when spirit comes up and taps you on your shoulder, like it did to me in both of those examples, like tap, tap, tap. Okay, time to go. Received.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get my ass up and I get out of there. Right. And again, just like Brad felt like taking a shower, I did some things after both of those events to clean myself of anything that I might have picked up while I had to be out doing what I had to do. Right. And it's just like, I am a hermit for the most part, but I still got to go to the grocery store. I still got to go get gas in my car. I still got to go to the DMV. I still got to do these things, right? But I'm more conscious now about protecting myself when I go out and about cleaning myself when I come home.
Yeah, no, that's a because always tell my daughter, make sure you wash your hands, you know, and it's the spiritual kind of equivalent of that, of washing your hands, of getting rid of all that dirt, spiritual dirt, I guess.
Well, and I'll tell you too, because I mean, again, we're here to try to help give people some practical things, right?
Mm-hmm.
You look at that and that example that you use of wash your hands
Mm-hmm.
for your daughter, right? That is also, when done with intention, that physical act is also a spiritual practice. And so a lot of times when I will come home or I'm outside or I'm doing something where I got a little dirty, one of the first things I do when I come home, I wash my hands with intention, right? And say something like this to myself. As I wash my hands physically, I am washing myself energetically and washing off and cleansing and aligning my energies to the way it needs to be. Simple, but that physical act actually acts as a spiritual practice. And what you are doing physically you are doing etherically, spiritually, whatever else you want to say at the same time. Right? A lot of people kind of know about smudging, right? A lot of people will smudge themselves with sage, other things like there's lots of different things that you can use from a smudging perspective.
Mhm.
But a lot of people will do that when they come home. They smudge themselves before they come into their house, or first off when they come into their house, right? Again, physical act, but it's also a spiritual practice. And when you start looking at some of these things that we do physically, and some of the things that are built into our culture, like in many societies, people take off their shoes before they go in their house.
Mhm. Yeah, especially in the East.
Especially in the East, right? And again, people are like, oh, that's so you don't have to clean your house as much, so you're not dragging dirt into the house. Well, yes, but there's a reason why practices like that are built into culture too. I mean, again, literally, you've just been out in the world picking up shit on your shoes energetically. And so physically taking off your shoes before you enter your house, physical act that's also a spiritual practice. Right. And so it's like I said, it's interesting. And as you start becoming more aware of or thinking about some of these things, right? Even just like, Mr. Rogers, love Mr. Rogers, right? Well, what did Mr. Rogers do at the beginning of every single episode?
Change the shoes.
He walked into his house in a business suit,
Mm-hmm.
right? He went over to the closet, he took off his business jacket, hung it up, took out his little zip up cardigan, sweater,
Mm-hmm.
and put on. He went over, sat down, took off his work Oxfords, put on sneakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, why did he do that in every single episode?
Good question. Yeah.
Because he's helping to show an example,
Mm-hmm.
right, of switching,
Mm-hmm.
switching our attentions, switching from work mode to personal mode, but also in a greater way of, again, metaphorically taking off the world, work, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
physically using some physical act that is not just a physical act when done with intention. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so a lot of these different practices that we do physically, or even things that are kind of just kind of a cultural norm in certain places, there's a deeper reason for why you do it. And we don't realize it, but by following and with intention doing some of these things, we're actually doing a lot more spiritually than we realize.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually know of some people that, especially who with the pandemic and working from home and stuff now, they will actually get dressed like for if they're going to the office, get in their car, drive around the block, turn back into their driveway, come inside, do their work, and at the end of the day they will get back in their car, drive back around the block the other way, and come back in, take off their work clothes, and to them that's kind of a signifies that, hey, the work day's done now.
Yep.
And that's how they have that boundary, that separation between, like you said, work and personal life and stuff. And so,
Well, and it's again, I mean, thinking about even like going into battle, right? I mean, before I go out certain places, I do things to protect myself, right? With some of the jewelry or other things that I might wear, some of that is protection. It's like me putting on my armor.
Jason's packing heat. That's right.
I'm packing heat and I'm going heavy, baby, right? I mean, I do kind of joke about it, right? I'm getting
Mm-hmm.
heavy to go out into the world, and then when I come back home, right, and I cleanse, I don't need to wear some of those things because I don't need the same protection,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just like a night coming home, right, and just having dinner with the family after going out and chasing windmills, right? They're going to get out of their suit of armor
Mm-hmm.
because you don't need your suit of armor while you're sitting there eating dinner with your family. but you need it when you go out and somebody might come up behind you unawares and try to take you out or do you harm. Right. And so those of you that are reading between the lines, good for you. Those of you that are not are thinking Jason is full of shit and this is just like some weird ass thing. But
it did not be exclusive, mind you. You can actually be reading between lines and thinking that. So
yeah. Well, you know,
I mean,
but again, what we do physically, we are also doing spiritually. I want to impress that upon everybody. I mean, this is one big lesson that I have gotten the last couple of years. Whatever you are doing physically, you are also doing spiritually. Right. And I think I've talked about like doing projects around my house. You know, it's like I've got a couple of projects this weekend that I want to do. I need to change the toilet seat in my guest bathroom. Why? I don't know, but Spirit told me I needed to do it. So, you know, again, it's like, well, that seems kind of weird. Why would Spirit tell you to change your toilet seat? That's just Jason being crazy. No, it's very clear. I got a very clear tap, tap, tap. Jason changed that toilet seat. I don't know. I think I kind of know why, but I don't even have to know why. But this weekend, I'm changing the toilet seat. When I do it, it's a simple thing, right? But I'm going to do it with intention and realizing that as I'm doing that simple little physical act, I'm doing something in a spiritual, etherical realm that is way deeper than I can probably consciously consider. And so, you know, I think we talked about washing dishes before too. Right? It's like one of my friends who can really feel energy. You know, I was sitting there washing dishes and she looks over at me and she goes, "You're blessing them, aren't you?" I didn't say anything, right? To most people looking, oh, Jason's washing the dishes. Yeah, Jason was washing the dishes, but I was doing something else too. And she could feel that energy, right? So whatever you are doing physically, you are also doing spiritually. And that can be good, it can be bad as well, right? Depending on
true.
what we're choosing to engage in the physical. So, yeah.
A lot of things for people to think about there.
Oh, there we go, right? Dropped it. But again, I mean, don't believe me, but I have just found the more that I have focused and placed awareness and attention on it, and I feel, right? I can feel and know that I'm doing something else. I don't have to know what that other thing is. It doesn't matter. But I know it's connected. And the more that I do it, the more it happens. Right. And one of my friends has told me when she is washing dishes, or let me go back. Some of the most powerful spiritual experiences and visions that she has had have come while she was washing dishes. So when you're washing dishes, you're not just washing dishes.
and by extension, when you were scrubbing the toilet, you were not just cleaning the toilet.
Right. When you're sitting at that tailgate and you start to feel uncomfortable, you're not just sitting at the tailgate, right? So move. Move if you need to, right? And just start listening to and following the intuition as it comes to you. So. And that's all I got to say on that topic. No,
Well,
I
at
got
that rate,
plenty.
then we're just.
I got plenty more, but
I was gonna say that's not true, right?
for sake of time of the episode, right?
Well, we
Probably
don't want
need
to
to kind of
overload
wrap up.
people with too much there at
No,
once. Like
no.
their heads are already probably ready to explode with the things you've said today. So uh, let them deal with one thing at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So right now they're just worried, thinking about what the heck am I doing when I'm washing dishes? Oh my god! Like
I don't know. Tune into it and see what you're doing when you're washing dishes.
yeah.
I don't know. But if people really want to know, if they tune in, they'll start to understand what they're actually doing. Mm-hmm.
So there's your lesson for today, folks.
Mm-hmm.
A
Or
cleanly
maybe
home is a happy home.
about
Oh.
20 of them that we just kind of threw in there, right? So pick whatever
Pick one. Just pick one.
is resonating with you, that stands out to you, and just do it. Just
Yeah.
try something. Start doing things a little bit differently every single day.
And then come back and listen again, and you can pick up another one. And
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, I don't know if you have anything else to add to this today. I think you pretty much threw it down. So
Yeah, it was a throwdown episode. So there you go, everybody. Just again, don't get overwhelmed with it. Just something that we said today jumped out at you. So just do something different going forward. Try something, make a change in your life, do something different. When you feel that you're getting tapped on the shoulder and getting told things, just start listening and just start following, even if it doesn't make any sense to anybody. Even if you're breaking what are considered social norms, just follow what you feel you're being guided to do. And let everything else just play out as it needs to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for listening and for letting us blow your brains out for time there, and hopefully you make it back for the next episode. We'll find something else to amaze and dazzle you with.
Yeah, so have a great week, everybody, and many blessings to all of you that are listening all the way through the end. And we appreciate you and appreciate you being here with us. We'll see you next time.
See ya.